Hello everybody and welcome to another episode of Shit Loretta Knows. So today we're talking about how your body knows it all. So you know how when you have a life experience, and it can be anything from a car accident to the birth of a child, to the death of a loved one, to the loss of a job, to a failure of a business, and all the happy ones as well. So not all only the not happy ones, but we tend to focus more on the negative. And so what you do is you cope and you put on your big girl t-shirt and then you move on. And maybe if it was sort of traumatic life experience, maybe you have a bit of therapy and then you say things like, well, I've been there, I've done that, I've had the therapy, I've got the t-shirt and I've moved on. The truth is your mind may have moved on, or you may think you've moved on, but every single experience you've ever had engenders a thought, and every single one of those thoughts engenders an emotion, and your emotions are your thoughts made real, and they're made real in your physical body. So every experience you have a record of that in your physical body, just like you have an experience of every bone you may ever have fractured, or every accident you've ever had, or you may have scars from surgery, or you may have scars from accidents. You keep those physical symbols of those accidents and mishaps. You have them on your body, but you also have hundreds of thousands of those that are unseen, that are in your body. And so that's what I meant by your body knows it all. Now, Dr. Gabor Mate wrote a book called Your Body Keeps the Score, and that's really what I wanted to title this, but I knew it would be cheeky because I would have actually stolen it. Your body is essentially scorekeeping. It's scorekeeping every single perceived trauma that you have in your life, from the time that you are in utero to the time that you die. So why does this matter? Well, it matters because we tell ourselves lies with our minds. We tell ourselves that we've been there and we've done that and we've dealt with it and we've moved on, and that it doesn't affect us anymore. And the actual experience may not affect us anymore, but the belief that experience engenders, the thought and the emotion and the belief, that affects us unconsciously all the time. And so we don't know it, but most of us are creating our lives from those experiences, from the armoring that we've had to put on in order to cope with those experiences. So what happens here is that the reason why you cope with a tragedy, where you cope with something difficult, is because you have a coping strategy, right? Because so if you're like me and you're like, well, what must I do? So just fucking sit around here crying. How's that going to help, all right? We actually have to move on. We've got to be pragmatic about this. We've got to get the job done. And so that's a coping strategy. That's a strategy. And whichever strategy you adopt, because some people's strategy is they collapse in a heap and someone has to help them, or they can't actually cope, or they need to have medication. I'm not knocking this, okay? They need medication, or they need to be hospitalized, or they can't actually integrate themselves back into whatever we would call normal life. And that can also be a coping strategy. So now what I'm trying to say is, I'm not trying to say one coping strategy is good and the other one's bad. Societally, one coping strategy may look better than the other, but the truth is they're coping strategies. They're strategies that we learned before we were 3 years old in order to keep ourselves alive. They're strategies that we learned that we needed to adopt in order to protect ourselves from being abandoned and therefore potentially dying. And so those strategies work. And there's nothing wrong intrinsically with the strategies. The problem is that most of those strategies are running us unconsciously, and eventually the strategy itself becomes a compulsion. It's like what you're doing is probably not going to work, but you do it anyway because you don't know of anything else that you can do. You don't know any other way to do it. So you just do the same thing over and over, and you end up getting the same result over and over. So you decide this year, this is of course a new thing, like what are my words for 2023? Balance and zen and peace. They're always words like that. Gives me the shits because I don't think anybody actually gets that right. But anyway, that's just my personal prejudice. We have these words, and we're going to be calmer, and we're going to be more zen-like, and we're going to respond better, and we might actually be able to pull it off for a period of time. But sooner or later, we tend to revert to our own mechanism, and when we turn around and we find ourselves in the same place again. And it's because we've applied the same strategy, fooling ourselves that it's not the same strategy, and that we're going to get a different result. So diets are an amazing example of this, right? That's why The book that I wrote was called Ditch Diets for Good, because they are an amazing example of this. You find a new diet, you call it a new lifestyle, you adopt the lifestyle, you restrict certain foods, you do certain things, you don't do other things, and then you get a result. You lose the weight, or you tighten your muscles, or whatever it is that you want to do. And then as you settle into that new normal, what happens is your old habits come back. Now, this doesn't happen to absolutely everyone. So there are people who manage to maintain it, but they are in the vast minority. So out of every 100 people that lose a significant amount of weight over 2 years, there's only 1%. In fact, less than 1% of them that'll keep it off for more than 2 years. So you may well be one of the 1%. But if you look around you, for every one of you, there are 9 other people who can't actually put it off, okay? So, or 99 other people actually that can't put it off. So why is that? Well, it's because we keep on applying the same coping strategies. Now, a therapist, when I was in therapy, once said to me that I think this is a Jungian theory. I've never gone to look this up, so, I might be wrong. But Jung basically said that for the first half of our lives are ego-driven. They're driven in terms of safety and security. So, we try and find a job and we make enough money so that we can have a place to live, and we can have a spouse, or we can have a partner, or we have children, or we don't have children. We create security for ourselves. We create material security for ourselves. And that is run through your ego. And your ego is where all these coping strategies are. Your ego is where all these limiting beliefs are, all the stories you've ever told, all the stories of your accumulated traumas. They're all in your body mind as governed by your ego. Okay? So what happens is your ego runs the show. So I think of it as like a car journey. So, your ego and your soul gets into the car, which is the journey of your life, at the beginning of your life. And the Creator says, you're going from East London to Cape Town. Cape Town's where your life's going to end. And for the first half of the journey, the ego gets to drive the car, and the soul just gets to be the passenger. But at Knysna, halfway between more or less, the swap has to occur. The soul needs to become the driver, and the ego needs to become the passenger. And the soul and the ego are both very happy with that. So they get in the car. The ego immediately has the map book and the GPS and Waze and the phone and Google Maps, and says, okay, soul, this is what we're going to do. This is the most direct route to Cape Town. We're going to follow the R72, and so on and so forth. And the soul says, no problem. The soul chooses the playlist. The soul buys the sweets at the filling stops, and the ego is in charge. These are your coping strategies, all work until you get to about halfway along your life. Now, that can be anywhere from about 38 to about 42, okay, or 43. So then what happens is they get to Knysna, and now the swap has to happen. So the driver becomes the soul, and the passenger becomes the ego. And the ego says to the driver, remember, we're on the R72, and then we're going to meet the N1, and then we're going to go straight through blah, 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 and we're going to get to Cape Town. And the soul goes, no problem. And when it gets into the seat, it chucks out the GPS, it throws out the phone with the Google Maps, it throws away the map book, and it says, I think we're just going to go on a journey of exploration. And it's at this point that the ego starts shitting in its pants, because now its well-ordered, safe, controlled system of getting to Cape Town, regulating as many variables as possible, is no longer in the running. And this is the point at which we usually have what is called the midlife crisis. The reason why a midlife crisis is such a cliche is because it happens to almost everyone. In spiritual terms, some people call this the dark night of the soul, and it can be more or less traumatizing depending on your individual experience. But so what happens is, in midlife, anywhere between 42 and 50 maybe, either we get ill, or we get divorced, or we go insolvent, or we lose a job, or we have issues with our kids. Something happens. And we try and impose our old coping strategies, soldier on, armor up, get the t-shirt, show no weakness, just get the job done. We do that, and it doesn't seem to work as well. And it doesn't matter how hard we try, it becomes harder and harder to do that. And so we struggle more and more and more to do that. And so as a consequence of that, we feel lost. We don't know what we're doing. We become anxious. We start feeling overwhelmed. And then we say shit like, oh, this must be perimenopause. Now, I'm not knocking perimenopause, because I'm right in perimenopause. And quite frankly, it's not nearly as bad as most people say. And you know what? It actually isn't also a complete walk in the park, because it's a change. Just like puberty is a change. It's a natural change. And now suddenly your past coping strategies don't work as well as what they used to. And so you don't have any new ones, but you can't rely on your old ones. And so you're left in this no man's land. And this is exactly what tends to happen to most of us, whether you're going through perimenopause or not, in midlife. And so why is that? Well, because it's an indicator for us to wake up. It's time to wake the fuck up and stop living according to our limited ego. Your ego can only process about 4 or 5 bits of information per second, your brain, ordinarily. Your soul, your spirit can process something like 4 million pieces of information per second. So you can see you've got so many more options when you're living aligned with your spirit than you do when you're living in alignment with your ego. Now, this doesn't mean that you're negating the ego. We're not wanting to get rid of the ego. The ego is not evil. You need an ego in order to have this physical experience. But it's about recognizing what are those coping strategies? What are those compulsions? What are the stories you've been telling yourself? What are the expectations that you have? What are the conditions that you put onto getting what you want? What do you believe about yourself? When you know what that is, and you can recognize that, and you know what it is that you would love to create, then you can choose to transcend this. Not fix it, not bypass it, not get around it, but transcend it. And it's going to be there no matter what you do, but you can choose whether you are going to create an alignment with your ego or whether you are going to create an alignment with your spirit. So we also tend to be more bulletproof when we're younger, just back to our physical bodies and our health. We're more bulletproof when we're younger, right? You know, you can get pissed more and recover. You know, you can go out all night and go to work the next morning. You don't get so badly hungover. If you don't drink, you know, you can exercise like a maniac and your recovery time is really much faster. You can burn the candle at 27 ends. You know, ask anyone who's a new mother or young parents, new parents, you can go without sleep. Like you wouldn't believe what you can do when you haven't had a baby, right? Okay. So you are physically much more robust, but what's happening is your body is keeping the score of all the deprivation, of all the punishment, of all the negative self-talk, of all the external traumas, of all the disappointments, of all the unmet expectations. It's keeping a score of that. And what we think of as normal aging, you know, it's normal to have aches and pains. It's normal to have chronic disease. It's normal to have heart disease. It's normal to become a diabetic. It's normal to get that middle-aged, I don't know, perimenopausal abdominal fat spread or whatever the hell people have the shits about, okay? We think it's normal. It's normal to have more aches and pains. It's normal to be more cynical about life. It's normal to look at young people who are optimistic and have big dreams and go, yeah, don't worry, life will knock the shit out of them soon enough and they'll wake up to the reality. It's normal to be more grumpy. It's normal to start feeling more anxious. It's normal to be more overwhelmed. It's normal to have acute diseases recurrently. So, you know, like an acute bronchitis, you know, you get bronchitis every year, or now you get it twice a year, or you have recurrent bladder infections, or you have recurrent sinusitis. We start thinking that that's just a function of aging. Well, actually, that's a function of your body showing you how the scorecard is filling up. Now, what do we do with this? I mean, is this depressing or what? That's not depressing at all, because your body is an amazing self-healing mechanism. It's always tending to health, no matter how old it is, all right? No matter how badly you've treated it, no matter how run down it is, no matter how many scars you've accumulated. So obviously, if you've lived really hard, like if you've lived hard, if you've pushed if you were a stuntman and you've broken like 27 bones in your body recurrently, well, your bone health is not going to be quite as robust as, let's say, my skeletal health. I don't know. I don't think I've broken and I've cracked something once, okay? So yes, we've got to take how did you live into account, and there's a limit to how much of the damage you can undo. But this is what we call miracles. When people actually can get their tumors to go away and go into remission, we call that a miracle. Well, the reason why that miracle is possible is because the body's a self-healing mechanism. So built into the majesty of the grand organized design that we live in, I believe we live in an organized universe, are 4 feedback mechanisms. The first one is your physiology. Your physiology is always feeding back to you about what's going on. Your physiology is always keeping the score. The second one is your psychology, which is connected to your physiology, because without a brain, you wouldn't have a thought, and without a thought, you wouldn't have an emotion. And even though in Western medicine, we've separated physiology and psychology, they're intrinsically connected. It's a mind-body, all right? So the mind and the body, the mind needs a brain. The brain is not your mind, but your mind needs a brain, because without a brain, your mind doesn't function. And if your brain isn't conscious, you don't have consciousness. And your brain's part of your body, and then you have a thought, and then the thought generates an emotion. So your physiology and your psychology are interlinked. It's just the same as when you're feeling physically unwell. It's very difficult to feel psychologically amazing. You know, if you've got a life-threatening illness, it's quite difficult to be peppy. A lot of people manage to do it, But that doesn't necessarily mean that it's the truth, okay? Because we all know how to put on that mask, okay? So you have your physiology, then you have your psychology, then you have your sociology. That's the people around you. So if your relationships are looking like a cesspit, that's feedback. If you feel that you've got toxic people that are in your environment all the time, that's feedback. It's not feedback that you are broken. It's not feedback that you are bad. It's just feedback. It's like when your GPS tells you that you've taken the wrong turn. It doesn't mean you're an asshole. It doesn't mean you don't know how to drive. It doesn't mean that you can't listen to instructions. It doesn't mean any of that stuff. It means you took the wrong road. That's it. And then the GPS tells you how to get back on the right road. So this feedback, you can either make stories about it, or you can just take it as feedback. So your sociology, what does the quality of your relationships look like? What does your connection to other humans look like? What is your connection to your community look like, right? What is the degree of empathy that you have for yourself and other people? How do you treat yourself? That's part of your sociology, because you treat other people very much, you usually treat other people like you wish you could treat yourself, and then treat yourself really badly. So that's your sociology. And finally, there's your ecology. Your ecology is the world. Your ecology is like what happens out there in the world. And our world, our earth, we've got climate change, and we've got all sorts of shit going down, like exploitation of the world and of the earth itself, right? So the earth is feeding back to us what's going on inside us. The earth is feeding back to us where it is that we are out of balance, where we are out of alignment. And those 4 feedback mechanisms are constantly operational. So what do we do about this? Okay? So those 4 feedback mechanisms are all trying to wake us up to the truth. And the truth is, you either are creating, the truth is you are always creating. Okay? You are a creator, and you are co-creating possibly with the creator, however you believe that to be. But the truth is, you have free will, and you're here, and you are creating your reality, and that your life is a composite of all the choices that you've ever made. Just like your body is a composite of all the food you've ever eaten. Or not eaten. Your mind is a composite of all the thoughts you've ever thought, of all the thoughts that anyone else has ever put into your awareness, right? That's what you are. And so you are a powerful creator, because you're made in the image of the creator, which means that you are constantly creating. The only thing is, there are 2 streams of consciousness creating all the time. You're either creating from the consciousness of your ego reality, all those limitations and the beliefs and the stored traumas and the stories you've told about the trauma, or made up about the trauma, or been led to believe about the trauma. And the second stream of consciousness is your superconscious, or your higher self, or your spirit. And those 2 are always helping you create. And they do that via your subconscious mind. And whether you create what your ego believes, or whether you create what your limitless spirit would love to express, depends on which one has the focus. It's actually as simple as that. Now, it's not that easy, but it literally is as simple as that. So you get to choose. Your free will is to choose. Am I going to create from my ego, or am I creating from my spirit? Do I want to create what I think is possible, and what I've created over and over in different forms during the course of my life, and sometimes it's looked better and sometimes it's looked worse? Or do I want to create what my soul is longing to express? That is the choice that we are given. And when we are living aligned with what our soul is longing to express, regardless of what's happening in our physical body. So, you may have a physical debility that you can't overcome, but you can still make the best of what you've got with the rest of what you have, right? And so the more we live in alignment with our higher self, the more we're living according to that limitless part of ourselves, the more we are able to create what we would love, not what we believe we deserve, or what we believe is all we can get. And that's where we use our will to make that choice. So, how do we do this? Well, first of all, let me tell you, I just want to talk about things like accidents and falls. So accidents, falls, recurrent acute diseases that keep on recurring, chronic diseases like slow diseases like diabetes that develops over time, or heart disease, or, rapid ones that are slow in coming, but then the heart attack is big and it's strong, and the stroke, motor vehicle accidents, bicycle accident, any kind of accident. You think accidents are random. Accidents are part of the divine order. Accidents are there to wake us up really abruptly, I think. okay? Acute diseases can be there to wake us up abruptly from where we are right now. But these things are all operating from the same mechanism. It's all this feedback that is trying to get you back to who you really are, the truth of who you really are. So what do we do about this, right? Well, the first thing you do to connect to your higher self is to choose to serve yourself from your heart. So take a deep breath in, sit quietly, close your eyes, take a deep breath in, exhale fully, and just connect to your body. Just feel your body, feel the heaviness of your body in the chair, feel your feet grounding you, stabilizing you on the floor. Feel the base of your pelvis supported by the chair, and the back of your thighs supported by the chair. That brings you into awareness of your physical body, because your physical body is always in the present moment. Then connect to the center of your chest, your heart center, and choose, put the intention there to choose to serve yourself from your heart, not from your mind, from your heart today. And then imagine yourself rising above. Just imagine your consciousness expanding and leaving all your thoughts, your feelings, and your expectations, your stories. They're getting smaller and smaller and receding away from you. And then ask yourself, what is my disease label, my accident, my fatigue, my anxiety, my overwhelm, whichever one it is that you have? What is it forcing me to do, be, or have? So if, for example, you have an accident, you break your leg, what's it forcing you to do? Well, it's forcing you to sit with your leg up, right? It's forcing you to stop exercising. Make a list of all the things it's forcing you to do. And then ask yourself how not doing those things is potentially a benefit to you. How is it serving you? What is it teaching you? What characteristics is it drawing out of you? What is it? So maybe one of the things it's forcing you to do is like forcing you to ask for help. And maybe you hate that. Okay, so it doesn't mean what it's forcing you to do you like. It's like, how does asking for help serve you? Well, maybe by asking for help, you see how many people there are that are prepared to help you. You see that actually the sky doesn't fall on your head when you admit that you are not omnipotent and that you actually need other people. The relationships you forge when you ask for help and someone gives it to you. What does it feel like to be a receiver of someone else's empathy or someone else's support or someone else's love? Those are potentially huge benefits. Many of us know how to give, very, very bad at being able to receive. Okay? So, what is it forcing you to do? And what is that thing that it's forcing you to do? What is that teaching you? What are the lessons inherent in that? What are the gifts in that? Because when you can find that, then you can actually normalize your nervous system function around it, and you're not so like, I hate the fact that I've got X, Y, and Z, and I've got to get rid of it, and honestly, this fucking body's letting me down, and aging is not for sissies, and it's the pits to get old, and all that bullshit. Think of all that shit we speak all day. That's what you're telling your body. You're just not doing the job. You're just not cutting it. You don't look the right way. You're not as strong as you should be. Blah, 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 blah. All right? Of course. Imagine if this was a person you were in a relationship with and all you did was criticize it all day long and lament about how long you've been together and what a ball drag it is for you. It's going to be very difficult for that to heal. Okay. The next thing you ask is ask yourself, what would I love? What would I love in terms of my health or my mental stability or my relationships? No impediment. Just allow it to free flow from your heart. What would you really love? Not what do you think you can have? Not how am I going to get it? It doesn't matter. The how is not your problem. What would I love? All right? And ask yourself in all the areas of your life, what would you love spiritually? What would you love in terms of the work that you do in the world? What would you love in terms of your finances? What would you love in terms of your relationships? What would you love in terms of your friendships? What would you love in terms of what you want to learn and what you want to know about and the wisdom you want to have in the world? What would you love in terms of your health? And then you cull that down, if you can, to like the sort of what really resonates with you. And then close your eyes and imagine that you've already created that. You can do it one at a time. Imagine you've got that relationship that you would love. How's that going to make you feel? Your subconscious responds to pictures and feelings. What would that look like and how is that going to make you feel? And when you do that and you breathe those feelings into your being, then ask yourself, okay, so what is my intuition guiding me to do next? And then take that action. And when you finish taking that action, then tune in again and ask, what's the next action? And trust that your intuition will reveal to you what is the best thing for you to do. This is the way that you take your power back, You empower yourself to become your own healer. You become your own authority. You become the creative force in your life. You become the CEO of your life. So, that's what you do. So just to summarize, you can start off with what's true for you right now. I hate the way I'm feeling. I can't believe I have this pain. La, 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 la. You can do that. That's really helpful. And then breathe deeply, connect to your heart, set an intention. All you say is, I choose to be of service to myself from my heart today, for my highest good, right? Then connect to what you'd love to create and feel into what it'll feel like once you've created it. When it's done, what is it going to feel like for you? And you'll find out very quickly whether it's an ego-related goal or whether it's a soul-related goal. Because, I might go, I want $1 million. Okay, but try and feel into what is $1 million ever going to feel like? It's almost impossible because it's definitely generated from my ego. When it's generated from your soul, you'll be able to feel into it quite easily. And actually, it can sometimes be quite moving. And then once you've done that, breathe that feeling in and then ask yourself, what's the next thing for me to do? What's right for me to do next? And if you get no answer, wait until you get an answer. I don't mean like sit there. You can carry on with your day. You'll get the answer. You'll get it while you're driving to work. You'll get it while you're in the shower. You'll get it when you're working in the garden. You'll get it when you're just lying down, I don't know, chatting. Someone will say something. It'll spark something in your mind. Act on it, right? That is how you follow your intuition's trail to do it. So this need not be hard. And so listen, this is the other thing. Don't think you already know it all. Honestly, the biggest killer to this is thinking you know it all. I am a real fucking know-it-all, okay? I admit my name is Loretta, and I am a smart-ass know-it-all. So I had this pain. I'm going to give you an example. I had a pain in my SI joint, which is where your pelvis and the base of your spine articulate, right? But it was like my glutes were really stiff, so my ass was muscle in my bum was really sore, and up into my waist and around into the front of my waist even. And I thought, I must have done something at pole because pole is a bit extreme, and it must have been all those inversions, or it must have been some sort of weird spin that I did. Anyway, I sort of nursed it up, put some arnica on it, I massaged it a bit. And I thought it would get better. And then I went to pole again. And then it just got worse. And then I thought, okay, now this is the sign that I need to rest it because, I'm listening to my body. So I didn't do anything wild and wacky on it. I stopped exercising. I didn't go to pole that week. I continued to massage it. And then I did this exercise where I connected to my body. And, it was, I can't remember what it said. You see, I took so little notice of it that I can't remember what it said. And then I was having a conversation with someone and they said something and I realized, oh my God, I know what this pain is. I know what this is. Okay. So I am making plans to move out of what was my family home. It was the home of my parents. My parents built this house. I was born here. I grew up here. And then I didn't live here for a number of years when I was doing my growing up stuff. And then I came back here 20 years ago and my daughter was 3 years old and she grew up here. And my parents died while we were living in this house. And my daughter's grown up while we were living in this house. And this is the place that I love. And I am going to move from here. Long story about why. And I'm very pragmatic. Okay, if it needs to be done, then we're going to need to do it. So this is what we're going to do. We've got to do X, Y, and Z ready. We've got to have it evaluated. We've got to get it on the market at some point. We've got to have plan B. Where are we going to move to if it sells really quickly? Da-da-da-da-da. That's me. Put on your big girl pants. Get logical about it. No drama. And just move on. The truth is, all my grief about having to let go of this, right here, in my SI joint. And the minute I realized that and I connected to that and I actually started crying about it and feeling it in my being, almost miraculously, my back pain's not gone. It's not gone. But I promise you, after 3 weeks of it being intense, and I had acupuncture, I had lots of therapy, right? I didn't just leave it. I mean, I went to people to help me sort it out. It's that's what it is. It's a reminder. And so it's not completely gone and it doesn't stop me from doing what I'd love to do, but it's there and it's constantly reminding me because I know that if it's not there, I'm going to forget. I'm going to pretend that it's okay. I'm going to go, it's just a house. It's just things. It's not worth making a drama about it. It is what it is. We've got to move on. That's my coping strategy. Armor up, shut down, get shit done. Now you might go, what's wrong with that coping strategy? Well, I'll tell you it sucks because it stops me from being real. It stops me from connecting to what's really going on. It stops me from honoring the fact that I'm allowed to grieve for my family home. And the minute I allow myself to do that, and I allow myself to actually feel into that vulnerability, my body stops having to armor itself quite so tightly. Your hips and this part of your pelvis is about fear of moving into the future. Duh, so obvious. 3 fucking weeks for me to get the message. So don't think that you know it all, because you actually don't, right? And this is why it's very useful for you to have someone guiding you through this. So as I was saying to a client of mine this morning, he said something like, why is it so much, why is it when I do this with you, it makes me like teary, it's like so touching. And I was like, well, because it's easy, because I'm helping you and I'm not in your situation. So it's easy for me to take the emotion out of it. It's not my situation. I'm not in your situation. And this is the value of having a therapist or a coach or a doctor that you trust, or someone that can really lead you through the process, because it's very, very difficult to do this for yourself. And you know why? Because your mind always lies. Your body never does. But if you've never learned how to connect to your body and how to decipher the signs and symptoms from your body and to actually make sense of them and put them into some sort of form that you can understand and you can work with, then you need to get some help to do that. So if you would like me to be that person, I would love to be that person to help you. So I work with clients one-to-one. It's in a 16-week program. They have a coaching session every week. They have access to all my materials, obviously direct access to me. And part of what you actually are paying for when you get a coach to help you is for them being certain that you can do it. So you can be uncertain, but they have the certainty. So I'm not always certain that I can fix it, because I can't fix it for you. Of course I can't fix it. But I am certain that you are a sovereign, powerful being who's capable of healing yourself. That I know. I have no doubt about that. And so I hold that certainty for you during that time. I also have 2 group programs. One's called Whole Body Reset. We're busy on it now. We're actually all starting our fast on Wednesday. So there's much trepidation going on. We're starting our fast on Wednesday. The Whole Body Reset will end at the end of June. And in July, I'm launching a new program called The Healer Is You, which will be a 6-month program, 2 one-to-one coaching sessions with me and 2 group sessions. So you have the benefit of having a group that's supporting you and going through the same thing you are or similar, as well as the one-to-one coaching sessions, so that you can apply what you learn. So one-to-one, you can work with me. The Whole Body Reset, the next one is kicking off in September, or The Healer Is You, which is kicking off in July. If you are interested in any of those options, please reach out to me. I'm happy to set up a call. We can have a chat, see what you need. If we're not a good fit, I'll refer you to someone who probably will be able to help you better. If we are a good fit, I would love to be your guide on this healing journey. Thank you to those of you who have been watching this live. Please type live if you've watched it live. Please type replay if you've watched the replay. Please give me your comments and your questions, even if it's to say this was really shit, it didn't make any sense. I would love that, because every week I come on here, I blab out for half an hour, it ends, and then off I go. So I love to get the feedback. You can send me a private message if you want to, if you don't want it to be for public display. Thank you for watching Shit Loretta Knows. I really appreciate it. And for those of you who are my clients, thank you for allowing me to express what my soul is longing to express in this lifetime. I am unendingly grateful for that. Hope you guys have a lovely day, and I'll see you next week for more Shit Loretta Knows.